Disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The music in the hall was light, the laughter of distant conversations wrapping around us like a warm, careless breeze. But my focus was entirely elsewhere. She slid into the seat beside me, her perfume subtle yet impossible to ignore, carrying a hint of something familiar and dangerously tempting. Our hands brushed lightly against each other's, and I could feel the electricity, that unspoken language of glances and half-smiles that said far more than words ever could. Her gaze locked on mine, steady, deliberate, almost daring. There was history here, a tangled thread of emotions neither of us wanted to name aloud. The wedding around us faded into a blur of flowers and laughter. In this small, intimate space, it was just her, just me, and that quiet, simmering tension between us. I wanted to reach for her hand, but the warning in her eyes froze me. A delicious hesitation that made the air itself feel charged. "If you touch my hand, I won't stop you," she whispered, soft and teasing. A tremor of both challenge and invitation lacing her voice. My heartbeat caught, the words echoing in my chest. What did she mean? Was this confession, jest, or temptation? The uncertainty wrapped around me like a velvet cloak, thrilling and terrifying at once. We both knew the unspoken rules, who we were, the world watching, the past we couldn't quite leave behind, but something about this moment defied all of it. It was a collision of restraint and desire, a quiet rebellion disguised as a polite gesture. Every second stretched, heavy with anticipation, and yet neither of us moved. We were teetering on the edge of something dangerous, delicious, and profoundly human. As the bride's laughter echoed from the other side of the room, I realized the night had only just begun. That fleeting touch, that daring glance. Everything about her promised consequences I wasn't sure I was ready to face. And yet I wanted to. The camera of my mind lingered on her face, capturing that intimate, fragile moment suspended in time, leaving me, and you, the viewer, hanging, caught in a heartbeat between restraint and surrender. The champagne glasses clinked softly on the table nearby, but to me, it was only the sound of her breath mingling with the music, a rhythm I could barely control. She leaned slightly toward me, just enough that our shoulders brushed, and a shiver ran up my spine. I wanted to pull back, remind myself of boundaries, yet every instinct urged me closer. There was something in the way she looked at me, eyes wide, glinting with mischief and something unspoken, that made restraint feel impossible. We spoke little, and yet our conversation was endless. A tilted head, a flicker of a smile, the way her fingers brushed mine when reaching for the napkin. These small moments spoke louder than any words could. I caught myself memorizing the curve of her jaw, the way her hair fell perfectly over one shoulder, as if she were aware of the effect she had on me and chose to wield it deliberately. "Do you always make it this hard to think clearly?" I whispered, my voice catching slightly, betraying my calm facade. She tilted her head, considering, and then smiled, slow, knowing, and infuriatingly tantalizing. "I think you do that on your own," she replied, her lips just brushing the edge of a laugh. That tiny sound, light and fleeting, held me captive. It was a tease, a dare, a promise, and it wrapped around me tighter than any embrace could. The room around us became a blur of flowers, lights, and laughter, while we existed in our own bubble of quiet tension. Every brush of her hand against mine, every glance that lingered a heartbeat too long, deepened the pull between us. I wanted to speak, to reach, to close the small distance between us. But another voice in my mind reminded me of caution, of the things left unsaid, of consequences we weren't ready to face. And yet, the draw was magnetic. Each accidental touch ignited a spark that neither of us could extinguish. Each shared look a secret that belonged only to us. The air between us was thick with unspoken questions, half-formed confessions, and promises of something we weren't ready to name. I could feel it, the anticipation, the longing, and it left me breathless, suspended, waiting for a moment we both knew was coming, even if neither dared to claim it yet. The soft glow of the chandeliers reflected in her eyes, turning them into something almost untouchable. I wanted to reach for her, to bridge the invisible distance that held us apart. But the walls we'd built around ourselves were heavier than desire alone. There was history here. Mistakes, misunderstandings, moments we'd never fully confronted. Every smile and brush of her hand felt like a confession and a challenge all at once. She leaned closer for a fleeting second, the air between us thick with anticipation. Our fingers brushed, lightly, almost accidentally. But the electricity that shot through that tiny contact made me flinch. I could feel her heartbeat, fast and uneven, echoing my own. Neither of us spoke, because words could ruin the fragile intimacy suspended in that moment. The quiet was louder than anything else, pulsing with everything we weren't ready to admit. "Why do you look at me like that?" I finally whispered, though the sound seemed too small in the vastness of the room. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she tilted her head, eyes tracing my face, her lips just barely parting as if to speak, then closing again. That hesitation said more than any explanation could. There was longing, yes, but there was also restraint, fear of what might follow if we surrendered to it fully. Her life, my life, expectations, old wounds. They were all between us, invisible but insurmountable. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. She was dangerous, not in the way people think, but dangerous because she stirred everything I thought I had contained. Desire, regret, hope, and fear all collided in the space between us. She reached for her glass, paused, and let her fingers graze mine again. The touch was brief, deliberate, a promise and a warning at the same time. I wanted to close the gap completely, but instead I leaned back just slightly, the pull of restraint stronger than the pull of temptation. The laughter from a distant table broke the spell, and we both smiled faintly, almost embarrassed by the intensity we'd let bloom in silence. Yet the tension remained, thick and palpable, like a held breath neither of us wanted to release. We were caught in a delicate, dangerous dance, wanting each other more than we could admit, tethered by invisible chains of memory, circumstance, and consequence. And somehow, that only made the desire burn brighter. The music swelled, soft and slow, carrying the whispers of 100 conversations I no longer heard. All I could feel was her presence, close enough to notice the warmth radiating from her, the subtle brush of her sleeve against my arm. Every heartbeat seemed amplified, echoing between us like a secret only we shared. The world around us, flowers, laughter, clinking glasses, faded into a blur, leaving only the weight of this suspended moment. She leaned slightly closer, and I caught a faint tremor in her hand. Our eyes met, holding, searching, questioning. There was a confession in the curve of her lips, a surrender in the tilt of her head, but neither of us spoke it aloud. The tension between us was tangible, a silent electricity that made the air heavy and impossible to ignore. I wanted to reach for her, wanted to bridge the space that was both minimal and infinite, but something deeper, respect, fear, desire, held me back. "You don't have to say anything," I whispered, voice barely audible over the soft strains of the string quartet. Her breath caught. She didn't answer, but her eyes widened just slightly, and I could feel her leaning into the moment, even as she held herself back. Fingers brushed again, this time longer, deliberate, and the contact felt like a spark in dry kindling. Every nerve in my body hummed with awareness, yet the restraint we maintained made it almost unbearable. A faint smile tugged at her lips, soft, almost shy, as if she were trying to anchor herself to something real amid the storm of emotions swirling around us. My chest tightened, and I leaned ever so slightly closer, just enough that our shoulders pressed together. The warmth was a promise, a tease, a truth neither of us dared to voice. We were suspended on the edge of something we had both wanted for years but feared to name, held in a silent, potent tension that left every glance, every touch, every breath electric. Then she whispered, low and fragile, a single word that made the world pause. The room, the wedding, the distant laughter, they all disappeared. Only the heat between us remained, palpable and unbroken. I wanted to respond, to close the last fraction of distance, but instead, I froze, aware that this moment, this pause, was everything. It was raw, it was real, and it was ours. The spark was lit. Whether it would become a flame remained suspended in that perfect, suspended silence. The rain had started softly outside, a gentle rhythm against the windows, mirroring the quiet storm inside. The warm glow of the chandeliers painted the room in gold, highlighting the small, intimate space we had carved out amid the fading celebration. Every glance, every slight movement, felt magnified, as though the world had narrowed to just the two of us. She reached for my hand, finally letting her fingers rest in mine without hesitation. The contact was electric, not in its novelty but in its inevitability. Her warmth seeped into my skin, a quiet affirmation that the restraint we had clung to for so long was no longer necessary. Our shoulders brushed, a delicate, tender touch, and it spoke louder than any words could. Her breath melted into mine, a soft exhale that seemed to carry away years of hesitation. I felt her lean just slightly, the space between us thinning to the point where every heartbeat was shared, every thought palpable. There was no rush, no urgency, only the slow, deliberate acknowledgement of something we had denied ourselves for far too long. We didn't need to speak. Our bodies, subtle as they were, communicated the things our lips could not. A hand grazing a forearm, a tilt of the head, a lingering gaze. They were confessions in motion, whispers of desire and trust intertwined. The heat wasn't physical alone. It was memory, longing, hope, and the recognition of finally being seen. Outside, the rain drummed a steady rhythm, a gentle percussion that matched the slow, steady rise and fall of our breaths. The room smelled faintly of flowers and waxed wood, a comforting, grounding scent that made the moment feel suspended, timeless. She leaned closer, resting her head near mine, and I felt the delicate warmth of her hair against my cheek, the softness of her presence anchoring me. Every small motion, the brushing of hands, the accidental touch of knees, felt like a universe collapsing into that single, suspended instant. Her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, and I understood without words that everything we had felt, everything we had hidden, was acknowledged here. The world outside could wait. There was nothing but the electricity of shared silence, the slow, intoxicating intimacy of being entirely present with one another. When I finally let my forehead rest against hers, it was as if the tension we had carried for months, maybe years, evaporated. Our bodies spoke the words we couldn't, and every small breath, every subtle shift, was a conversation more profound than anything said aloud. The rain, the soft lighting, the quiet space we had created, it all conspired to make this surrender feel sacred, romantic, and breathtaking. In that moment, everything unspoken became known, everything restrained became free, and everything we desired became a shared, elegant truth. Morning light spilled softly through the curtains, casting a gentle glow over the quiet room. The remnants of the night's soft music still lingering in my ears, the faint scent of her perfume, a single flower petal from the reception on the floor, made the space feel both intimate and impossibly vast. I lay there, eyes tracing the outline of her resting face, marveling at the delicate rise and fall of her chest. The intensity of last night hung in the air like a thick, invisible fog, heavy with longing and unspoken questions. Neither of us spoke immediately. Silence stretched, not awkward, but charged, each of us caught in our own swirling thoughts. Was it love that had pulled us together, or was it a desperate escape from the weight of what we had carried for too long? The truth was blurred somewhere in the overlap between desire and vulnerability. She shifted slightly, a quiet sigh escaping her lips, and I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That simple gesture, soft, tender, careful, felt monumental. It was a reminder that connection wasn't just about the heat of the night. It was also about presence, about holding someone in the calm that followed the storm. My thoughts raced. Could we truly step back into our lives unchanged? Could we navigate the world knowing we had touched something fragile and profound? The questions were heavy, but the warmth between us offered a small, steady comfort. Then the knock came, sharp and unexpected. We both froze. Neither of us expected company so early, or anyone at all. Her eyes met mine, wide with alarm, yet there was a flicker of amusement beneath the tension. Whoever was outside the door was about to intrude upon our fragile bubble, forcing us back into the reality we had left behind. Even in that moment, the bond between us felt deeper than before. The night had changed something unspoken, something we couldn't undo. Yet we had survived it, together, if only in silence and soft smiles. The connection was no longer just about longing or hesitation. It had become something richer, heavier, more real. And so we remained there, quiet, caught between laughter, uncertainty, and the heavy sweetness of a night that would linger forever in memory. Outside, the world moved on, but inside, time had paused, and we were still suspended in the fragile, potent aftermath of everything that had passed. The day had faded into a quiet evening, the sun lowering itself behind distant rooftops, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. We sat side by side, shoulders brushing, fingers intertwined in the ease of shared understanding. The tension that had defined our night, the longing, the restraint, the silent confessions, had softened into something steady, warm, and achingly human. She rested her head lightly on my shoulder, and I felt the gentle rise and fall of her breath. Our hearts were no longer racing with restraint, but beating in quiet sync, a rhythm we had only just allowed ourselves to hear. There was no rush to speak, no urgent need to define what had passed between us. In that moment, we simply existed together, in a delicate balance of affection and trust. "I never thought we'd get here," she murmured, voice soft and almost shy. I pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, a gesture filled with more meaning than any words could carry. "Neither did I whispered back, my lips brushing against her hair. "But I'm glad we did." The night had given us more than passion. It had given clarity. We had faced the walls we had built around our hearts, touched the depths of what we felt, and found something enduring beneath the heat of temptation. The connection between us was no longer a spark in the dark. It was steady, quiet, and unshakable, a reminder that intimacy was as much about presence and understanding as it was about desire. We sat in silence for a while longer, letting the warmth of the moment sink in, the golden light embracing us like a promise. And when we finally rose to leave, it was with the knowledge that whatever the future held, we had crossed a line into something profoundly real. No words could capture it fully, and yet every look, every touch, every shared breath spoke louder than any declaration ever could. In the end, we didn't need to rush. We had each other, and that was enough. Sparkles, if this story made your heart race or gave you goosebumps, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more romantic, emotionally charged tales. Love letter, share your thoughts below. Which moment made your heart skip a beat? We love reading your reactions. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story full of tension, romance, and cinematic moments. Television, and if you want to experience the full journey in video form, click the link in the description to watch the complete story unfold.